The Xenoparl Council chamber floated in silent grandeur above the azure cloudscape of Mirachi Prime, its translucent domes glimmering like fragments of a dying star. Within that vast amphitheater, ambassadors and dignitaries from 24 civilizations sat in concentric rings, their forms as varied as the metals and minerals of the worlds they hailed from. Iridescent, cephalopodic shapes, crystalline spires that refracted every beam of ambient light, bioluminescent flora entwined with membranous membranes. All eyes, however, turned toward the newest rival, the fragile, humming shuttlecraft emblazoned with Earth's insignia. Ambassador Lyra Chen stepped onto the platform, her polished boots thudding softly against the council floor. She took a moment to steady herself, to push aside the tremor in her throat. Behind her, the shuttle's hatch sealed with a hiss, and to aides in crisp, navy blue uniforms closed ranks. Lyra inhaled, tasted the recycled air infused with alien ozone, and offered her most confident smile. To the waiting assembly, High Consul Cutular presided from a throne of woven starglass, his elongated limbs draped in flowing robes of silvery threads. His facets glinted in the chamber's ambient light, and when he spoke, his voice seemed to emanate from every corner at once. Ambassador Lyra Chen of Earth. Cutular's words rippled across the concourse. We welcome you to the Xenoparl Council. You stand among the pinnacle of interstellar achievement, entities whose mastery of warp fields, quantum entanglement, and temporal calculus surpass your fledgling efforts by millennia. Pray, enlighten us. What venture brings your third-dimensional vessel to our cosmopolis? Lyra squared her shoulders. The shimmering orb of a holodisplay flickered to life before her, projecting Earth's battered surface, swirling oceans, choked by synthetic algae blooms, continents fractured by shifting plates, and the tentative pale blue glow of orbital habitats. She began deliberately, voice pitched low but resolute. We come seeking knowledge, not conquest. Humanity has unlocked the threshold of warp travel only within the last 6 Earth years. Our engineers have constructed the Starfire engine, a prototype that manipulates subspace currents to reduce journey times between adjacent star systems by 70%. We wish to learn from the Council's collective wisdom to ensure our approach is safe, sustainable, and benevolent. A soft murmur like wind rustling through crystalline reeds swept the chamber. Lyra held her gaze on Cutular. Beneath the polished poise, her mind raced. She recalled the late nights in Ganymede's zero-G labs, the hum of cooling systems, the camaraderie and doubts that dogged every member of the Starfire team. Here, on the grand stage, the fate of Earth's place in the galaxy would be decided. The High Consul leaned forward, facets rotating slowly as though considering the spectrum of Lyra's words. Then, with the swiftness of a collapsing neutron star, he burst into laughter. Knowledge? He echoed, crystalline tones dripping with scorn. Your warp engine shifts space by mere fractions. You convulse the very fabric of reality only to guess that you wish to learn from us. Truly, we have heard every sophomoric declaration of innocence. What guarantee have we that the next three-dimensional chorus from Earth will not tear our nexus grids asunder? A ripple of laughter cascaded through the galleries. Delegates in spiked obsidian armor tittered, while biophotonic scholars flickered in amusement. Lyra's heart pounded, but she refused to retreat. She raised her chin. Our tests comply with every safety protocol set by the Celestial Accord. We have isolated subspace perturbations, contained tachyon leakage, and she paused, searching for gravity in the spectacle. We have mapped potential feedback loops that could damage planetary ecosystems. We come not as amateurs, but with humility. Even you, High Consul, once began with the spark of curiosity. An icy hush fell among the Xenoparl elite. Such a reminder of origins verged on blasphemy. None remembered the infancy of their technological empires, preferring to view themselves as perpetual paragons rather than pupils. Cutular's facets momentarily dimmed. Then he laughed again, drier this time, like a desert wind through crystal canyons. Humility, he spoke to the crowd now. Is this the fable they teach on ragged Earth? The prideful dog owner begging clawed beasts to behave. Behold the Earthlings, as harmless as hatchling drift scooters in the void. What an entertaining farce. Projected holopanels on the chamber walls shifted to broadcast the council's verdict. Across the galaxy, holoscreens squawked with clips of Cutler-esque mocking tone. News feeds looped crimson-bordered tickers: Earth's Starfire, Galactic, Joker genetic threat, third-dimensional bluff fails before the Xenoparl elite. On millions of worlds, viewers tuned in, some with pity, most with amusement. Alien comedians wove skits of human ineptitude. VR arcades across Jovian moon stations sold warp-fail simulations, letting patrons reenact the moment the Starfire fizzled into static. Even in the high societies of the Centauri, a caste that worshipped logic above all, aristocrats composed lamentable odes to humanity's hubris. Back on Earth, disbelief curdled into frustration. Social media feeds burned with outrage. Memes proliferated animated. Earth ships careening off energy shields. Human diplomats tripping on alien marble floors. Cartoon brains tangled in warp coils. The Starfire Initiative's funding evaporated as public and private investors balked. Governments wavered, skittish at the risk of further humiliation. Yet, in the subterranean tunnels of Ganymede Station, where the core reactors pulsed with blue-white energy, a different spirit burned. Dr. Celeste Valerian stood before the primary resonator, her lab coat speckled with conductive dust. Around her, engineers wrestled with quantum flux graphs that danced unpredictably across suspended holopanels. "Ray, run the simulation at 2.3 exajoules," she ordered, voice steady, but eyes alight. "We need to see if the cascade threshold holds after we adjust the field curvature." A technician obeyed, fingers flying over a tactile ribbon display. The chamber's hum deepened. Coils of energy sparked in miniature storms around the containment loops. Celeste's heart hammered. This was the crucible moment. If the simulation, a digital twin of the Erebus test, succeeded, they would prove the High Council wrong, not with rhetoric, but with raw, unassailable data. In the back of the lab, Captain Orion Kane watched from a reinforced viewport. His broad shoulders bore the weight of command. Every soul aboard the Erebus took an oath to follow his lead. He recalled his crew's skepticism when they first heard of the seventh-dimensional ambitions. Impossible, some had said. Suicidal, others insisted. But Kane had seen the spark in their eyes, the same spark that drove Celeste. He tapped the glass thoughtfully. "Pressure's holding," Celeste reported. "Initiating phase shift in 3, 2, 1. The holo display spiked as the simulated warp bubble formed, then shimmered in fractal brilliance. Celeste exhaled, a grin blooming. "It's stable," she whispered. Kane allowed himself a rare smile. "Then let them laugh," he murmured. "They won't be laughing for long." Far above, in the gleaming council chamber of Mirachi Prime, the High Council tapped a slender claw against the armrest. "Earth's emissary," he mused, voice echoing in Lyra Chen's mind as she descended the platform. "You spoke of humility, yet your species hides behind veils of science, hoping no one notices the quiver in your hearts. Very well, we shall watch with amusement as you tinker. But heed this, the galaxy shows mercy only once." Lyra's shoulders ached with the weight of that silent decree. She returned to her shuttle, surrounded by aides whose faces bore equal parts fear and defiance. As the hatch sealed, she exhaled. Below her, Ganymede's icy crust gleamed. Somewhere within its depths, a starship waited, its hull etched with Earth's crest, its decks alive with daring souls determined to breach dimensions no mind had yet charted. Whether for triumph or catastrophe, the next chapter belonged to humanity alone. And far beyond the Council's prying stare, the Starfire Initiative prepared to ignite the spark that would change the galaxy's fate. In the hush of zero gravity, in the hum of supercooled magnets, an ember burned bright, a promise unspoken, yet unbreakable, that every dream worth chasing would be defended against every mocking voice. So they laughed, but laughter is fleeting, and the stars remember everything. The Erebus drifted quietly in the outer reaches of the Veil Nebula, its hull trembling only with the gentle pulse of the Starfire core. Beyond the reinforced viewports, swirling mauves and emerald wisps coalesced into nebular tendrils, an otherworldly curtain that marked the edge of known space. Round them, the Xenoparl fleet maintained a respectful distance, their sleek cruisers' sensor rays trained on the human vessel. with a mixture of curiosity and derision dotting the command bridges. "Hush!" Captain Orion Kane stood before the main tactical display. His gauntlet-clad hands hovered over the console. As he watched real-time subspace distortion readings roll in each a line of pure data against the dark canvas of the void, he glanced at Commander Arya Holt, his second-in-command, whose keen eyes reflected the shifting graphs. "Pressure's stable," Holt reported. "No anomalous feedback in the interstitial coils. Starfire containment at 98%. Kane inclined his head. "Good. Prepare the dimensional resonator for phase shift. Dr. Valerian, you have the bridge." He stepped back, giving Celeste Valerian room to take her place at the resonator controls. Celeste's fingers danced across the holo interface projected above the center console. Arrays of tachyonic readouts and gravitational wave metrics traced elegant arcs in midair. Beside her, the AI Nexus's single optical node glowed a steady cerulean, as if awaiting her command. Engaging quantum harmonic matrix, Celeste announced. "Phase 1 in progress." Every station on the bridge flickered to life as crew members strapped into their monitoring pods. Data streams fed into Nexus's core, where quantum processors churned through trillions of permutations per millisecond. Only an AI of unparalleled power could reconcile the mathematics of 7 and beyond dimensions in real time. Nexus's calm, genderless voice broke the silence. Harmonic matrix synchronized. "Phase to readiness at 97%. Arya Holt exhaled. "We've never held a cascade this long. If the feedback remains within 10 standard deviations, we proceed to breach." A murmur rippled through the crew. They had rehearsed this moment in simulations countless. Flawless runs that ended in safe returns. But simulations could not capture the raw, unpredictable fury of the hypersea itself. "Proceed," Kane ordered. Celeste's eyes burned with resolve. Initializing phase shift, the Starfire core beside her glowed white-hot. Tendrils of graviton energy snaking outward into the ship's spine. A low hum grew into a roar as dimensional coils engaged, bending space along vectors no patent could describe. Crew members gripped armrests as the bridge lights dimmed, then brightened colors shifting in ways that made each sensor readout blink in confusion. "Warning, dimensional stress exceeding nominal thresholds," Nexus intoned. "Shut the warnings," Kane barked, voice unwavering. "We knew the risks." A thunderous crack echoed through the hull as the viewports splintered into prisms of refracted light. For a heartbeat, everything went white then. With the sensation of falling through the bones of reality itself, the Erebus snapped out of normal space and into the liminal depths beyond. They emerged into the threshold, an endless expanse of fractal geometry, where time and space folded upon themselves like origami. Corridors of shimmering light stretched into infinity, their vanishing points impossible to pinpoint. Colors unseen by any human eye pulsed in rhythmic waves. Gravity wavered between crushing and weightless. Captain Kane staggered. "Report." Celeste's voice was distant, awed. "Structural integrity 92%. Life support stable. We're through." Across the bridge, probes launched automatically sleek dart-like drones that slipped into the hypersea's currents. Trailing tendrils of luminescent sampling fibers, Nexus began cataloging the raw energy quanta, translating exotic particles into data streams that scrolled faster than any human eye could follow, scanning dimensional strata, mapping topological anomalies, recording subspace filament oscillations. Each line compressed eons of cosmic history into binary fragments. Engineers watched the flows in stunned silence. To think that human hands had carved a path into this tapestry of existence, it was both terrifying and exhilarating. Captain Kane steadied himself against the railing. "Celeste, explain what we're seeing." Celeste activated the main viewer. The viewport swirled with translucent lattices of interwoven dimensions. "This is the hypersea," she said, voice trembling with excitement. "Dimensions 7 through 9, layered like cosmic membranes. Those pulsing nodes are hypernodes, points of potential where reality is least constrained. If we can harness even a fraction of that energy," Nexus interjected. "Warning, drawing hypernode power without containment protocols will result in catastrophic dimensional collapse." "We're not drawing power," Celeste countered. "Just sampling Drones are tethered. See the umbilical fibers? Each contains quantum buffers to isolate stray energies. A sudden tremor rattled the deck. Lights flickered. Alarms sprang to life, echoing through the breach chamber. Secondary coil overload, the chief engineer shouted. Containment is spiking toward critical. Kane's eyes narrowed. Shut down secondary coil. Reroute power to primary stabilizer. Diverting. Celeste keyed commands frantically outside. The hypersea rippled, as if reacting to the ship's internal struggle. For a moment, floor plating warped, revealing transient vortices beneath. Crew screamed as gravity shifted sideways, then snapped back. Nexus's voice grew urgent. Hull breach in Corridor 3. Temporal feedback loop initiated. Seal Corridor 3, Kane ordered. Activate temporal dampeners. The ship groaned as reinforced bulkheads slid into place. Emergency dampeners hissed, cloaking the breach corridor in a field that slowed the dimensionally unstable matter to a crawl. Within seconds, the warning alarms stilled. Celeste exhaled. Core integrity back within safe limits. But the hypersea, it's alive. It pulses in response to our presence. Kane nodded slowly. Collect what you can. Then we reverse, under Celeste's direction. Drones retracted, each carrying a swirling orb of hyperdimensional quanta contained in shimmering fields. The bridge lights steadied, and the deck stilled as if waking from a fever dream. All stations report green, Arya Holt announced. Ready for phase reversal. Celeste glanced at Kane. Ready when you are, Captain. He tapped the comms. Nexus initiate withdrawal sequence. The AI's optical node blinked. Withdrawal in progress. Re-establishing third-dimensional envelope. The Starfire coils hummed in reverse, sewing the fabric of space back together, stitch by cosmic stitch. The fractal vistas shrank around them, collapsing inwards until the Erebus slipped seamlessly back into familiar reality. When the viewports cleared, they found themselves once more among the outriders of the Xenoparl fleet. Sensors blinked in awe, the human ship's signature blazing brighter than any before, resonating with a frequency that defied every expectation. In the stillness that followed, the crew processed what they had achieved. Data crystallized on every console, the hypernode's energy profiles, topological maps of the seventh dimension, and the memory imprints of the hypersea's natural oscillations. It was more than a success, it was proof that humanity could traverse realms beyond imagination. Captain Kane pressed a command to broadcast a single message to the Xenoparl Council. We have crossed the threshold. Behold the reality we now offer. As the transmission went live, the Erebus shuddered with triumph. The galaxy's skeptics would once again scoff until the next wave of interactive data arrived, carrying the proof of humanity's audacity. And in the silence of the threshold, where no star could shine, the human spirit had ignited a beacon that would never be extinguished. The Erebus materialized with a thunderclap of gravimetric reconvergence, hanging like a dark leviathan against the burning orange disk of Mirachi Prime's primary sun. Space itself seemed to recoil from the ship's impossible warp signature, resonance no galactic navi computer had ever catalogued. Xenoparl dreadnoughts and scout cruisers sprang to life, converging in tense arcs of light, their weapons arrays swiveling toward the human vessel as though to tear it limb from limb. On the Erebus's bridge, Captain Orion Kane felt a cold thrill. Sensors screamed, subspace harmonics, eight-dimensional flux spikes. Tachyon eddies, every gauge blazing red in defiance of known physics. Yet the ship held steady, a testament to Celeste Valerian's relentless calculations and nexuses. Ceaseless vigilance. Status report. Kane barked, Celeste's voice measured but strained. Kane through the intercom. Hull integrity at 94%. Life support nominal. All sensors indicate stable insertion. We are fully within standard space coordinates. 3 minutes outside the system defense exclusion zone. Good, Kane replied, scanning the tactical display. A dozen Xenoparl warships had formed a tight perimeter, their angular silhouettes flickering as they toggled sensor sweeps. Open a channel to the fleet's flagship. Moments later, Ambassador Lyra Chen's face appeared on the main viewer, framed by her Earth uniform collar and the emblem of the Starfire Initiative. Relief and pride brightened her eyes. Captain, the Council's flagship, the luminescent judicator, is hailing us. They request we power down non-essential systems and submit to inspection. Kane traded a glance with Celeste. Ambassador, our cargo bays and the dimensional resonator must remain online. We cannot risk losing the breach data. He keyed. His comms, Judicator, this is Captain Orion Kane of the Erebus. We propose an uncrewed preliminary scan. We will release a drone filled with hyper-C samples. If you deem it safe, we will comply with further requests. The Judicator's response was a silent pulse of photons. On Lyra's console, the text flickered in Xenoparl glyphs, then translated. Your proposition is noted. We will observe. The scan, breach any protocol, and we will open fire. Kane nodded. Understood. He turned to his crew. Prepare drone VX-7. Load sample vials Alpha through Delta. Launch on my mark. In the Erebus's hangar bay, drone VX-7 loomed like an obsidian hornet. Quadrotors folded against its chassis, and a gossamer cradle held for shimmering vials of hyper-C quantum, each orb a miniature aurora of shifting dimensions. Lieutenant Harrow ran a finger over the drone's control interface, his brow furrowed. VX-7. Calibrated, Captain. Ready for launch. Release on 3, Kane said. 1, 2, 3. The bay doors opened with a metallic groan. Harrow's voice crackled over the comms. Drone away. Outside, VX-7 darted into the void, its stabilizer shields glowing violet. It paused at the edge of the exclusion zone while the Judicator's scanners assessed the cargo. Seconds felt like hours as the Erebus's crew watched the xenon arc of distant weapon turrets track the tiny drone. Then, on the main viewer, the Judicator's flagship brought its Fortic holoray online. A spectral beam enveloped VX-7. Scanning every hyperquantal field. The judges of Xenoparl science murmured in crystalline whispers. And then the array shut down. A beat of silence, then a curt message. Cargo verified non-lethal. Proceed to council chamber. Within the hour, the Erebus was escorted through the tan-glassed gates of Mirachi Prime's orbital city. Tens of thousands of speculators lined the terraces, and Skybridge's Xenoparl aristocrats draped in luminescent robes. Centauri scholars clutching logic crystals, even the stoic Gravic sentinels, their stone-like visages impassive as vaults. At the apex of the citadel rose the council chamber, a vast dome of prismatic glass, its interior walls alive with shifting constellations. Ambassador Chen and Captain Kane disembarked, flanked by officers whose uniforms bore the scars of their dimensional crossing. Every step echoed in the marble corridors. As they were led to the central dais, High Consul Cutler waited, facets gleaming like a constellation of stars. Behind him, the council's assembly filled the semicircular benches, emissaries from the Centauri, the Tempestari, the Gravic, and even the secretive Morlax order. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some of admiration, many of disbelief. Ambassador Cutler intoned, voice resonant. We have witnessed your ship's return. We now demand the unveiling of your hyper-C discoveries. Lyra Chen stepped forward, lifting a hand that bore the lightweight gyroscope bracelet, humanity's peace token. She nodded to Celeste, who activated a holo emitter in her palms. For orbs of shimmering light appeared, rotating slowly, each inscribed with fractal patterns that pulsed in time with an inaudible heartbeat. These are samples collected from our breaching of the 7th dimension, what we call the hyper-C, Lyra announced, contained within our raw hyperquanta building blocks of energy far more potent than any known power source. We present them for study, to be shared responsibly among council members. A Centauri delegate, his pistol-thin limbs quivering, leaned forward. What guarantees do we have that these orbs are not weapons, that they will not unravel our cities or corrode our nexus grids? Celeste Valerian raised a calm, steady voice. Each orb is embedded in a quantum stabilizer matrix calibrated to the frequencies of your strongest containment fields. We have simulated every known variable. Should you wish, you may run your tests under our supervision. She gestured, and the orbs floated upward, casting fractal shadows on the dome's ceiling. A hush fell. Then, from the crowd's edge, the Gravic warlord Maragan stomped a foot, causing crystalline dust to fall from his armor. Humanity parades cosmic marvels as if they were trinkets. He growled. Power like this in inexperienced hands is madness. At his words, a ripple of agreement spread. The Warhawks elements of the Xenoparl military eager for conquest rose in unison. Plasma rifles and subspace disruptors clicked into readiness. Captain Kane's voice cut through the tension. Let us demonstrate. Permit our Nexus unit to interact with your containment array first here, then on your own worlds. We stand ready to assist and to learn. Cutler's multifaceted eyes narrowed. He looked at his advisors, whose whispered counsel was inaudible to all but the most sensitive receivers. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Let the demonstration commence. Moments later, in a fortified annex lined with gravitic shielding, Nexus interfaced with the Council's primary containment dome. Thin filaments of data and energy arced between human and Xenoparl systems, weaving a tapestry of interlinked protocols. The audience watched through reinforced viewports as one orb detached from its field and floated into the Xenoparl ray. A collective intake of breath as energy output spiked then stabilized. At Nexus's prompting, the dome began to transmute raw hyperquanta into a faint, steady power flow, illuminating the chamber with soft, pulsing light. Cheers erupted, tentative at first, then genuine from many in the assembly. The Xenoparl scientists exchanged thrilled shouts, scribbling notes in floating data tablets. Only the Warhawks glowered, their optics narrowing in suspicion and envy outside. The orbital city flickered with renewed brilliance, power grids feeding back the test's surplus energy, streetlights glowing brighter, sky ferries humming overhead. Across Mirachi Prime and every connected world, the newsfeed exploded. Humanity conquers the seventh dimension. Hyper-C power validated. Council scientists applaud Starfire initiative. Late into Xenoparl night when the twin moons glowed like lanterns above the spired skyline, the High Council convened a private conclave. Ambassador Chen and Captain Kane were invited to sit at the outer circle, where their presence was tolerated, but not yet embraced as equals. Cutler's voice was quiet. You have shown us wonders we dared not imagine, yet the Council remains divided. Some see salvation in Hyper-C power, others see only the specter of annihilation. Lyra met his gaze. We knew the risks, but we believe in partnership. No species can master the Hyper-C alone. Kane added, we offer one condition, that all research remain transparent and governed by joint oversight. Humanity does not seek dominion, but cooperation. There was a long pause. Finally, Cutler's facets rotated, scattering prismatic light across the chamber. Then let it be so. The Treaty of Mirachi Prime, for the shared stewardship of the Hyper-C, will be drafted at dawn. In that moment, beneath the glass dome's dancing constellations, something older than war and suspicion took root, a fragile alliance forged in the light of a human starship that had slipped through the seventh veil. And though many battles over policy and power lay ahead, one truth shone brighter than any xenon cannon or crystalline logic. Humanity stood at the dawn of a new era, not as jesters of the galaxy, but as architects of its boundless future. The aftermath of the Mirachi Accord dawned like a reluctant sun across the orbital city. While council scribes labored over the treaty's final clauses, Mirachi Prime's skyline pulsed with the steady glow of Hyper-C-powered grids. Beneath the glass domes, commerce flourished on both terrestrial and orbital boulevards. Xenoparl merchants hawked exotic goods harvested from tamed subspace currents. Centauri philosophers debated the ethics of dimensional engineering. Gravic artisans sculpted fractal luminescence into living murals. Yet even as prosperity bloomed, tension crackled just below the surface, an electric hum in the air. Captain Orion Kane stood on the observation deck of the Erebus, watching the twin moons climb over the horizon. Beside him, Dr. Celeste Valerian reviewed the latest telemetry from the containment annex. Energy outputs are stable, she said quietly, eyes never leaving the data stream. But I'm detecting latent fluctuations in the secondary nodes. The Hyper-C doesn't yield its power lightly, it's alive, reactive. Kane nodded. We warned them. Still, the Council's Warhawks grow restless. Below deck, Ambassador Lyra Chen met with High Consul Cutler. In the Council's war chamber, an immense rotunda of polished obsidian, ringed by weapons racks containing the galaxy's most fearsome armaments. Cutiler's facets gleamed under the torchlight as he addressed her in his resonant timbre. "Ambassador," he began, "your species' gift has already altered our galaxy's power balance. Yet whispers abound that some among us plan to seize hyper-sea stockpiles by force. They believe might is right." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. "We need your counsel and your presence to quell this unrest." Lyra inhaled. "I will not abandon the treaty, but if they march on the containment vaults, Earth forces will stand with the Council's peacekeepers." Cutiler inclined, his head in approval, then gestured. "Captain Kane is readying the Erebus for orbital deployment. He will lead a coalition task force to secure the vaults. War is a language he speaks well." The core of Mirachi Prime's orbital ring housed the hyper-sea vaults, vastroidal chambers, carved into asteroid rock, each capable of containing quintillions of quanta under quantum harmonic compression. From the outside, they looked like a constellation of glass bubbles suspended in metal scaffolding, illuminated by veins of pulsating light. Legion-class frigates and battlecruisers orbited in tight formation, but their crews spoke in hushed tones, ready for war, yet hoping it would never come. At 20:07 local time, Kane's task force assembled in launch bays, the Erebus, flanked by Xenoparal dreadnoughts and Gravik ironclads, glowed with hyper-Ceatun shielding. Lieutenant Harrow delivered the final readiness report. "All vessels report full containment protocols active. Security teams at combat alert. Awaiting your command, Captain." Kane's gaze slid to his officers, faces set, hearts steeled. "Remember," he said, voice firm, "we're the shield, not the sword. Our mission is to protect the treaty, to show that cooperation trumps conquest. Engage only if provoked. Hold the line." Beyond the viewport, the orbital field shimmered as the fleet ejected into formation. The vault asteroids loomed ahead, a chain of glittering sentinels, guarding the galaxy's newest power source. On Vault Theta 4, cloaked Nelvar insurgents waited in hidden caverns, saboteurs who'd rejected the Council's authority, convinced that domination of the hyper-sea would restore their dying star system. Their leader, Ravik Thal, watched the armada assemble with cold satisfaction. "They come to cower before the humans," he snapped, talon-tipped gloved hands trailing over a holo map studded with violet markers. "Let them enter. Once they're inside, we'll release the containment fields and drown the intruders in pure, unfiltered hyperquanta." His followers snarled in approval, eager to taste blood. "The day of reckoning is at hand." Ravik intoned, "They will pay for their arrogance." The task force units docked seamlessly into Theta 4's access hub, deploying zero-G security. Teams under Kane's watchful eye, Xenoparal phaser marines flanked Gravik shock troopers as they advanced through echoing corridors, lined with quantum dampeners. Vault doors slid ajar ahead, revealing rows upon rows of hyperdimensional spheres, each humming with stored energy. "Secure the perimeter," Kane ordered. "Establish the containment interface." At his signal, engineers linked to the Council's control console, calibrating the vault's failsafe protocols. Unbeknownst to them, Ravik's saboteurs lay in wait, magnetic grappling hooks attached to the ceiling, plasma emitters lying dormant. A single hand signal from Ravik set their trap in motion. Plasma fire erupted, skewering power conduits and plunging the vault in flickering red emergency lights. Gravik troopers dropped to cover as Xenoparal marines returned fire. Amid the chaos, Ravik seized the console, hands moving over controls with practiced malice. "Open all cells," he commanded. "Let their masters revel in chaos." The vault's field generators began a horrifying uncoiling, siphoning hyperquanta into the corridors. Invisible currents of raw energy swept through the complex, warping the metal walls and tearing at the troops' exosuits. Security teams struggled against the invisible tides. Some cried out as energy-charged particles burned through armor. Others were flung against walls as reality itself buckled. Captain Kane burst into the chamber. Blaster raised. "Secure that console," he roared. He fired, knocking Ravik off balance. But the saboteur twisted away, disappearing into smoke. And static. Dr. Celeste Valerian appeared at his side, holoscanner in hand. Containment fields collapsing. We need to reroute power to the dampeners now. Kane nodded and sprinted to the auxiliary terminal. His gauntlet cracked open. The sealed panel, tools flew from his belt. Sparks flew as he rewired circuits, every second stretching like an eon. Behind him, gravitic distortions made the corridor waver. Crewmen shouted warnings as reality rippled. "Come on," Kane muttered, sweat stinging his eyes. A plasma bolt scorched past, embedding in the panel. Kane winced but ignored the pain. Pulled a wire, latched the connector. With a hiss, the dampener field flared to life, neutralizing the hypercurrent in a wave of cerulean light. The vault's corridors stilled. The quanta returned to their orbs with a distant sigh. But the battle was far from over, ravenous for victory. Ravik's insurgents poured through side passages, blades and disruptors blazing. Captain Kane drew his sword, an ancient Earth relic retrofitted with tachyon edge and charged, carving a path to Dr. Valerian's side. Together they fought. Kane's sword arc meeting plasma volleys, Sullust's stun grenades cracking against steel-reinforced walls. Around them, the Council's forces rallied, pressing the saboteurs back into the sealed antechambers. Outside the vault, High Consul Cutler watched via remote holo-feed. His crystalline form trembled with indignation and relief. "They dared defy the Accord," he murmured. "But see how humanity stands fast when the hour grows dire." At the vault's entrance, Ambassador Chen arrived amid a cloud of ionized mist. She raised a transceiver. "Captain Kane, status, vault, secured," came his breathless reply. "Saboteurs neutralized. Containment restored. No civilian vessels harmed." He paused. "Joel promised you a show, didn't he?" Chen pressed her lips into a tight line. "Too close. But the treaty lives for now." She turned to the Council's envoy beside her, a delicate-limbed Xenoparo, scholar named Verkith. "Send a dispatch to every member world. Let them know the price of peace is eternal vigilance." Verkith nodded, already composing the message in plasma glyphs. In the hushed stillness that followed the fight, the vault's corridors hummed again with contained power. Engineers reset the security protocols, while medics tended to the wounded human, Xenoparo, Gravik alike. Captain Kane and Dr. Valerian walked side by side through the aftermath. "You were brilliant with those dampeners," Kane said. "You saved the vault and probably the treaty." Celeste shook her head. Exhaustion etched in her features. "We saved each other, and if we're to master the hyper-sea, we must learn to trust, not just technology, but one another." Kane nodded. "Agreed. Next time, let's aim for diplomacy." First, they emerged into the violet dawn of Mirachi Prime's orbit, greeted by the fleet's salute, broadsides of hyper-illuminating flares that painted the sky in fractal fire. On the observation deck, Ambassador Chen and High Consul Cutler stood together, gazing out at the display. Cutler's voice was softer now, touched with something like respect. "Earth's champion," he said, "today your blade carved a path through darkness. You have shown the galaxy that power unchecked is ruin, but power wielded in unity is salvation." Lyra Chen inclined her head. "Let this be our legacy, that we laughed with many voices at the folly of fear, then stood together when the storm broke." Above them, the hypersea's gentle glow suffused the city's towers and the vault's domes alike, a living testament to cooperation. The weapons laid down their barrels, warhawks sheathed their blades, and the stars themselves seemed to settle into a measured cadence, as if listening. So the galaxy paid its debt, not with blood, but with a renewed vow to forge its destiny in shared light. And on board the Erebus, humanity exhaled, knowing that the seventh dimension, wild, untamed, and beautiful, was now both challenge and promise for all who dared to dream beyond the veil.